The benefit to sealing a class is that calling code has to use the class as is. The behavior of the class and its members can't be changed by inheriting from it and then overriding any of the properties and methods. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, you would do this if you wanted to ensure that the code you wrote is the code that other developers add to their projects when they use the class. You want to mandate that this class is used as is. So for example, you may write a class that encapsulates business rules or complex calculations, and you want to ensure that others use these rules and calculations without modification. Another common reason to use sealed classes are for classes that implement security features of an application, and you want to prevent modification of those security behaviors either accidentally or maliciously, because that could introduce a security vulnerability to your application. Here's a sealed customer class that's sealed. Now, just like abstract classes, there's nothing magical about including sealed in the class name. Generally, you wouldn't do that, but I wanted to distinguish this from other customer classes that I have within the sample project. What makes this a sealed class is the use of that sealed keyword. Okay, so now as soon as I do that, I can't derive from this class any longer. I have to use this class as is. I can instantiate the class to create it into memory, but I can't derive from it. Okay, so now there's a few issues with creating sealed classes. And in particular is the case if you seal a class that already exists and is used by other code. So I have a customer class, it's used by other applications and so forth, and I seal it. That can cause some potential conflicts. All right, and one example of a conflict is that if I have declared various properties as virtual. Now, in other uses of the customer class, I created this customer name property as virtual. Specifically, I have the virtual keyword as part of the definition. Okay, so notice that the use of the keyword, strictly speaking, is okay. There's no red squiggly underneath it. But notice that I have red squigglies under the getter and setter, the get and set keywords. And so I'll hover over that, and you can see that it says sealed customer.customerName.get, so referring to the getter method, is a new virtual member in a sealed class, sealed customer. Okay, Visual Studio, for the most part, generally has really good error messages. This is not one of them. So what's really happening here is that the only reason I would declare a property as virtual is that I'm going to derive from this class, create a class that derives from this class, and override that property. The virtual keyword there is what allows me to do that. But I can't derive from this class, so it makes absolutely no sense to declare any members as virtual. And so it tells me that it's not going to compile the code because you're doing something that you can't do in a sealed class. All right, so I'll hit Control-Z and get rid of that. I'll go all the way back. All right. Okay, so I've gotten rid of the virtual. I can't override that member anyway. Okay, so if I'm going to convert this to a sealed class, I would want to remove any of those virtual keywords before I put the sealed keyword on the class. And of course, I would also need to remove any code that inherited from this class as well. So generally, you're probably going to want to create classes that are sealed when you first design them, because you can break code if you seal the class. Now, another related issue is, notice that I have this kind of olive green, whatever color that is, squiggly under cumulative sales. And it's declared as a protected static int. And what this variable is used for is to aggregate all of the sales that are recorded through all instances of the sealed customer class. But if I hover over that, the error message says sealed customer.cumulative sales, new protected member declared in sealed class. And the issue here is related to the virtual keyword because protected means that I have access to this variable not just from within this class, but from within derived classes as well. Okay, I don't have derived classes, so it's silly for me to use the protected keyword. But what's interesting here is that this is not a compiler error. If I come down to the error list, you can see that it's a warning, but it's not an error that is going to keep me from compiling this code. All right, so it's really not as severe a problem, I guess, is the reason why it's a warning. And by the way, you can configure what errors are warnings and severe errors within Visual Studio. So you do have control over that. Okay, so now I have this sealed corporate customer class. And what I want to do is I want to make use of that sealed customer class, so I'm going to inherit from it. So I'll get rid of, oops, wrong way. So I'll get rid of the comments, and notice that I have a red squiggly underline. And the problem is that it says sealed corp customer cannot derive from sealed type sealed customer. Sealed customer is marked as sealed. I can't derive from it. Right as soon as I declare the class and say that I want to derive from the sealed customer class, the C# compiler stops me from doing that. Can't do it. Can't pass go. Can't collect $200. Okay, so I'll put those comments back in. All right. Now, you can't seal individual members in a base class either. It's the class or nothing. But you can seal members in a derived class. So this is sort of an interesting situation because what this does is that prevents classes further down the inheritance hierarchy from changing the behavior of those methods. And so you use the sealed keyword to identify a property a method is sealed. So this is really getting into some advanced stuff. So again, sealed customer is sealed. I can't derive from it. Customer is not sealed. So I can derive from customer. But then in my derived class, maybe corporate customer, I can include sealed methods. And then any classes that derive from that corporate customer class down the road can't override those sealed members. Okay, so kind of an advanced sort of technique. All right, so we can look at an example where the idea is that it's really important to record sales correctly, since you're recording financial information. Therefore, you might decide to seal the record sales method so that no one, including you, can change its behavior in derived classes. Okay, so if I go into customer 3 here, and I have record sales here, notice that it's marked as sealed. So this is that situation. Customer 3 derives from abstract customer 2. I can do that. Then I have the implementations. But then I'm sealing the record sales because I don't want other classes that derive from customer 3 to be able to override record sales. All right, so I'm just including the sealed keyword. So again, this is different. This is not preventing me from derive from customer 3. So in fact, I have a corporate customer 3 that derives from customer 3. So that's fine. And I can do that, and I can add methods. I can override other methods. But if I attempt to override record sales, so I'll take away that comment, notice I get a compiler error, hover over it, corporate customer 3, record sales, string and int, cannot override inherited member, record sales, because it's sealed. Okay, so now I, as a developer, writing code that is using this customer 3 class, now know that it's sealed. I can't override this. I have to use the functionality of record sales. All right, so you can start to see how this gets fairly complex, but the nice thing is that Visual Studio has all of the features that help you do the right thing, to not use code inappropriately.